So while all the conversation around politics 2023 is on, there is a big question of governance. And what's the essence of governance? It's security and welfare of the citizen at the simplest level. And you may have seen that story about bandits, terrorists invading the Kaduna International Airport, killing one NAMA security official. It's really mind-boggling to just think about that particular incident, because that's perhaps an airport you have visited in times past. So let's take a look at what this means, what we may have missed, and how to forestall this, not just at that airport, but in other places that might be vulnerable. And to do that with us, we have Captain Ali Umar, who is a former Army officer and a CEO, Gold, Water and Riversand. He joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Captain, it's good to see you. I was saying earlier that, yes, it's good to see you, but most times when we see you, it's when we have these dire instances. And this latest one on the Kaduna International Airport, I remember in 2020, we were meant to take a trip, but we had to shelve it because there was something similar, and we had to take the rail. That's why a lot of people have moved to the rail. Last year, again, there was some abduction at the, staff quarters of the airport. So this latest one, how would you read it? Is this an attempt to get publicity for the terrorist, or just a reflection of the reality?
Good morning.
Good morning.
The situation as it happened, quite unfortunate, actually just opens it a bit more, so we could be able to appreciate what is on ground and what needs to be done, what is happening, how it happens, and what needs to be done. We start with security, and we've all come to agree that security is everybody's business today. Everybody's business. And then we go back to that place where an attempted attack was made. And one very brave personnel of the airport authority there at the extreme end tried to raise alarm. Unfortunately, we lost him because he was killed. That evidently botched whatever they were trying to do. And good enough, there is a standby force which was commissioned recently, the 37 Demo Battalion. 37 Demo Battalion sits and is dedicated by the Nigerian Army within the academy, and its area of responsibility, because of the resilience and the itinerant nature of security today, includes that airport and the safety of people and equipments around that airport. Then we also have an Air Force group, an Air Force Special Forces deployment, which also covers that place. And good enough, they were able to respond. And when they did respond, they were able to save the day and recovered 2 abandoned motorcycles that these bandits had used in their attempt to get through to that airport to do God knows what. The way I see it, there are pockets of areas of concern around that airport area, which is namely the Afaka Forest area. And other than that Afaka Forest area, there are up and out to Birningwari axis. You have a lot of places where these people are likely to sit in and come out from.
I recall Afaka is infamous. We've had like a kidnapping incident in Afaka, quite infamous. But still talking about, the airport, you said that there's a battalion.
Yes,
at
indeed.
the end. I imagine you're talking about the NDA, the
yes,
academy.
the Nigerian Defense Academy
But
Demo
the
Battalion.
academy is about, what, 20 kilometers away from that airport, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So, I mean, imagine the time it will take for response. Even the Air Force Base is quite a distance from the airport. And looking at the security architecture, I mean, airports usually are not within, except in rare cases, they're not usually within city centers. They need a lot of space and land and all of that. Perhaps the distance, couldn't we have it maybe closer, the battalion, maybe domiciled in the airport, seeing that this space is seemingly exposed?
Yes, indeed. That the Air Force Base is actually on the Mando axis, Kao Mando axis, and the Demo Battalion is in the Nigerian Defense Academy. Does not mean that is their hub or that is their home base. Okay, that's just the parent unit that accommodates their headquarters. Their operational area takes them out of that place, and they deploy as security situation warrants. What I think the challenge would be for now is, first and foremost, the Kaduna State government actually works hand in hand with the armed forces and the security agencies. They provide logistic support, they provide whatever, support they can do to garner up and help drive the successes of this deployment. But what I think, if you asked me, we need to do today is to first and foremost adopt what I have always spoken about in the past. And permit me to use the word again. We need to adopt a ruthless approach to this situation. We need to make the cost of banditry so high. Okay, let me just use me. See, if my mother's husband was a bandit, I'll take him out. I have no apologies. I don't want to sound like a humanist or a pacifist. Desperate injuries need desperate cure.
Regardless of rules of engagement.
Let the rules of engagement take the back seat. These are not people who respect no rules of engagement.
Is it because they have been declared terrorists?
Leave that. All of that bring in the politics and the semantics and the verbiages of it all. What I'm trying to tell you is we have a rich history with these people, regardless what you call them, of not respecting states. We've tried to give them a retirement plan with pensions. They don't respect it. I have seen soldiers pay with their lives. I have seen widows who are still mourning. Their husbands have not even been remunerated for properly. Bandits have retirement plans. Some are abroad training. Listen, what we have on ground is a situation where we must bear our fangs. See, democracy has teeth, and democracy can bite. Okay? So most of the time when we are walking, we need to understand something. Anything that threatens our national security state of being, regardless what it is called, should be treated commensurately for what it is. These bandits, from what we know, are not even Nigerians. They are not. And they come in here, and what are they trying to do? They're trying to carve out a space for themselves, regardless what anybody thinks.
My apologies. Is this, we'll come to the ruthless part, first, because sometimes I like to trace why it's happening in the first place. What's the root cause? Would you call this an economic crime, or it's just an ideological one? What would you call this one?
We cannot even begin to define them, but let me try. If you say it's ideological, what ideology? There is none. Today they jump on ideology. Tomorrow when you're trying to solve the problem based on the ideologies they're profiling and bringing them in, they jump to religion. And the next thing they're telling you, no, it's not about religion. It's about forming their own caliphate. Then when you are talking about forming a caliphate, they really have nothing doing other than mischief.
Okay. Again, so they attacked an airport. Why an airport? I mean, we could understand if it's kidnapping of children at schools for ransom. We could understand if it's on the roads and they're attacking people for ransom or for money or whatever. What is in an airport for them to attack?
Based on the intelligence gathered, I have been in contact with the commissioner for the Ministry of Internal Security and Home Affairs of Kaduna State. And they do have a very diverse and grassroots deep intelligence acquisition mechanism among the populace, the locals around there. What really happened is there is this entitled sense of disruptiveness these bandits have. there was a disagreement between two chieftains, so-called chieftains of these bandits, over cattle. And before you knew it, it was like within that area, they are going to cause mayhem so that those who have probably taken his cattle, his in-laws, should be able to know that even though his son-in-law is also another bandit chieftain, he also matters. So what you see is a people who are so spoiled, they believe that if we are not reckoned with, then nothing happens. It doesn't have to be an airport. Once they are aggrieved, they just go anywhere and start wreaking damage, start killing people. So the entire Kaduna, in this case, you know that, you know what, we are here. And anytime we cannot have our way, or anytime we feel aggrieved, we can just go and plunder anywhere and destroy anything.
Doesn't that sound, pardon me, like a simple way to just wish this away, saying battle between two chieftains? They attacked an airport.
That's what I'm saying.
Anyone could have been. I mean, airports have security.
Let me give you an example of what I'm trying to tell you. As we speak, there are groups in Nigeria today that really have nothing doing other than mischief, because mischief has become a way of making money. Violence has become the new normal. And I'm trying to tell you that if we have to get this mentality out of our national space, then we have passed that period of trying to be altruistic or politically correct, or we want to do the kinetics, or we want to do the rehabilitations, or we want to do all those things we have already proven have been tested and have failed.
But then the kinetics have not always also done justice, it would seem. We've been fighting this battle since, what, 2009? Yes, I mean, it has tapered down in the war zones, if I can use the term, Sambisa Forest. But what it has only done is to decentralize the security all over the place now. So today it's an airport, tomorrow it's a school, and stuff like that. So perhaps the challenge is that we're missing certain conversations, we're missing certain perspectives, we're losing certain sight of certain things. Soldiers such as yourself and superior soldiers, senior soldiers, retired soldiers, military officers have said that, look, we need to deal with certain social denials, social things that people lack, social lacks that people have had over time, and that has also, been an issue. Just recently, the president called for a conversation with the governor of Imo State on something similar, insecurity and all of that. So it would seem like then that maybe the boots and guns and bullets are not really doing the magic. So what are we missing? Because we can't continue like this. There will be no investments, no jobs, no creativity, no productivity if these things continue. Investors are not going to feel safe.
Really, you have a point. We have already lost investors over time. People are running away. And that brings us back to what I'm trying to tell you. Until we actually pin it, we will keep going around in circles.
So what's the pin?
That's what I'm saying, that you have to make one God-fearing example. You see, when you deal with this kind of people, you speak with a little voice, carry a big stick. You see, let me tell you something. I'm not interested in sounding nice or politically correct now, because the symmetries are growing. That's about the only gain, size-wise, we're seeing with victims. Okay? If we have to stop this inferno, if I could call it, then the first thing we have to do is to show these people that, you know what, we can break necks, horns, and draw blood. We can, look, if we let our army on these people for 90 days, cock our ears and close our eyes, we're going to set them running out of our space. Let the world speak about all the human rights violations. It's okay. But we have to breathe. We have to live. These people have us by the jugular, and somebody is telling me of kinetics, and somebody is telling, they don't know no kinetics. We are not dealing with, permit me to say, these people are not even human, they are animals. Apologies to animals. Because even animals don't behave like this. These are people that we need to get off the face of this planet, wherever they can be found.
So in reality, I mean, in the real sense of it, so how then do you tell a soldier whom you have previously told to abandon rules of engagement and just go ahead, do whatever you want to do? How do you now tell them to now come back to that rule of engagement for another, perhaps a different mission? And the question here is, I mean, how far is too far? How do you draw a line? Because that's what separates us from non-state actors. State actors, essentially, or the state, as it were. You have rules, you have a law, you have a constitution and all of that. So how do you draw the line? Because sometimes, I mean, you know about these things. You just throw caution to the wind, and they become rogue.
Now you're talking about the soldier who've been told to abandon those rules of engagement. No soldier ever abandons his rules of engagement. It's okay for you to see it from that perspective as a civilian, but I am telling you that a soldier is so resilient that he can actually adapt and readapt and readapt. It all depends on what he has to do. Let me give you an example. 20, 30 years back, demo battalions were not meant to be fighting battalions. Demo means demonstration. They were meant to aid training. The itinerant nature of our security challenges has turned demo battalions to fighting battalions. And that's why one is sitting down in NDA right now and covers that area. So what I'm talking about here is simple. A soldier's rule of engagement is about what? Keeping people alive. Keeping people alive means he has to put his own life at risk. In fact, death is life to a soldier. The art of dying for causes is life to a soldier. So if you want to look at it from the humanists, from the pacifists, and all those angles, you have a point. But don't forget that the soldier you are using is also human. Anytime you drop one soldier dead, you've lost one life.
But you know,
and at what cost are we doing that?
I know that the governor of Kaduna State has said this anyway. He said, go into the bushes and bombard them. Forget about all of these things. But it looks like there's some certain pushback. And you'll understand why. And I think that's a challenge you have as well. So perhaps you've sat in the same meetings with the governor, or you share that same perspective, understandably. But recall the Global Terrorism Index that was recently released.
Indeed.
Nigeria performed better compared to what we had seen in previous times. But something quite remarkable or instructive about that report is that we've seen more attacks. Yes, we've seen fewer deaths according to that report, but we've seen more attacks. So it would seem as though, yes, there are bombardments. I mean, they've called for simultaneous bombardments across all the northwestern states and even some other bordering states. Yes, we've seen that, but they are carrying out more attacks. So it would seem as though we're fighting this war on the one hand, seem to be winning it, but in terms of attacks, and who knows how brazen they will get, that those attacks will now start leading to more death. So how are we having more attacks when it seems we're winning the war at the same time?
We have more attacks, yes. We have less deaths, yes. Those are the stats. I've seen the last global terrorism, GTI, Global Terrorist Index. And indeed, the number of deaths reduced even though the attacks increased. That is true. What you should be looking at is this. Whatever the Global Terrorist Index says is looking at it at what you could say are generic at a national level. I am isolating this place. I am looking at the people who are operating in that place. You will agree with me that they don't multiply like, I mean, their numbers are not infinite. Their numbers are not infinite. And if you understand what I say, their numbers are not infinite, you see that is why they move in pockets. They move in pockets and try to create fear.
So this one wasn't 300, as I said, or
no,
hundreds?
No, there were about 100 bikes, so said, 100 bikes. They came out from, my guess should be from that Afaka axis. Mm-hmm. And before you knew it, their attempt to run into the runway there and do whatever was botched.
Well, Captain, 100 bikes. Let's imagine 2 people at least, or 3 on each bike. Not in ungoverned spaces.
Hold on. Have you been to that place?
Oh, dear.
Have you seen the landmass we're talking about?
So how, I mean, it sounds simplistic, but don't we have aerial surveillance. And I think it's important to clear this
All
up.
of this.
To notice these
All
movements.
all of this is key. There is an aerial surveillance facility with Simon Arua. He has a control room where they bring in information, okay? But when you sit and look at these things on paper, they tend to look quite little. On the ground, operationally, 100 bikes will be so insignificant spread out across this place. There is no law that said the bikes form a line and move. You could just see 2, 5, 6 bikes, and the next thing is they zero in and gather, and the attack is on. What I'm trying to tell you is this. There is something they create in their pockets, which we must turn around and use against them. And it's fear. The moment it hits the news that these people are operating, it gets, of course, news has to spread. Today with social media, news spreads in seconds. It creates that fear index that is so high. These little insignificant mites begin to look like some larger than life force. And what I am trying to tell you is that we can use that same fear index against them by putting the fear of our nation space in every single bandit whose mother is a woman like mine.
Captain, just one last one here. There are those.
They are human beings. They are not animals. They are not
on
ghosts.
Twitter asking the question.
Yes.
Terrorists attack an international airport. I don't know if it's an international airport. No arrest, no CCTV footage. It's so sad that crimes are perpetrated and culprits walk away freely. Now, it sounds to me like you're saying we've been on the defensive. Let's get on the offensive.
That's it.
How do we do that? Especially when we do not seem to have adequate information, what you call intelligence information, to know when and how this thing is going to happen.
How do we do that? There are two things. As I said earlier, we must encourage our soldiers to do even more. And doing even more means tell the soldiers what you want and get the hell out of their way. Sorry, I have to use these terms. And that is why probably people like me never lasted in the system. A soldier is a soldier is a soldier. It's either you want it or you don't want it. Don't call a soldier and say, you know what, go take that thing out. Then tomorrow you say, but you see, we don't think that way. When dialogue, diplomacy, rehabilitation, all of that has failed, that's when you call a soldier out. And he's coming here to just clean it out.
Well, we're glad we were able to call you a soldier out on this one. But Captain Umar, we have to wind down. It's always quite interesting speaking with you on these issues. But they are there, and I'm glad you've spoken to them. But so far, Captain Ali Umar, former Army officer, CEO, Goldwater and Riverside, it's been a pleasure, as always, speaking with you.
Same here, same here.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.